Okay, so you guys have learned how to solve a system of equations before. Remember, a system just means you have more than one, okay? In ninth grade math, we pretty much just deal with two at a time. Those of you guys that are going to do advanced math, you'll get to do 3 equations at a time and even 4 sometimes, depending on the day. But for us here in ninth grade, we just deal with 2. So that's what makes it a system. Now that if you graphed those 2 equations, you could, and you're allowed to use again, you're going to get tired of me saying the words Desmos calculator, but you're going to keep hearing it because it literally gives you answers, friends. And I'm going to be showing you a lot about how it gives you answers. So you know one way you can do is you can graph these 2 equations and just see where they intersect, and you can get the answer that way. Thank you, honey. Today I'm going to show you another method that for the times that you don't have a graphing calculator. And that strategy is called substitution. So I know we got a lot of athletes in here. So when you make a substitution in the middle of the game, what are you doing?
Stepping out.
You're pulling somebody out and you're putting somebody else in, right? You're replacing them. That's exactly what we're doing today with substitution. We're just doing it with numbers and letters instead of people, okay? So example number 1. Oh yeah, and it's important to note that this works the best when you've got a variable that's isolated, which remember means by itself, okay? So in example number 1, I have a variable that's all by itself. I have the equation y equals -2. So everybody color that y equals -2.
What color?
It doesn't matter. I'm going to do pink, but if you want to be consistent, you can do that. But as long, it doesn't really matter. There we go. All right. So we already know, sorry about that interruption. We already know that y equals -2 because that information was given to us in the original problem, okay? So I know that y is equal to -2. How do I know y is equal to -2? Because it told me so. So what am I going to do with that -2? I'm going to take this equation. I'm going to take the other equation, okay? I'm going to rewrite it down here. So I'm going to take the other equation, and I'm going to take that y, and I'm going to remove that y, and I'm going to substitute it. What do you think I'm probably going to put in the place of the y? -2, exactly. That way, I have an equation with only one variable in it, so then it's easier for me to solve because so that y is going to come out, and I'm going to replace it with that -2. I know a lot of you guys don't like to do extra steps and extra work, and I get it. Like when I ask you to explain your work, I never ask you to write me a big paragraph. This is one time where me asking you to do a slightly extra step really does help. Take an extra minute to write the entire equation over again. So 4x, rewrite it exactly the way it is. That minus that's right there, make sure you write that down. Make sure you write the equals. Make sure you write the 14. So I, first of all, always, in case you can't tell, I love color coding stuff. It really helps me because I really struggled with undiagnosed ADHD when I was your age. It helps me focus. So I take the variable I'm getting ready to substitute. I color it. I rewrite everything around it exactly the same. Then I replace the variable with a -2. So one of the things you might notice, I don't just have one negative in that problem, I have 2 because I had one subtraction symbol from the original equation, and then the 2 had a negative also. So I had to bring both of them in there. I would say when people do substitution, negatives are the #1 mistake they make. So that's why I'm warning you in advance so that maybe that won't happen to you. Okay, so I'm going to stop here for a moment, and I'm going to look at this minus a minus. Okay, so what's the math word for taking away? Subtraction, okay? So let's say that Aaron comes in here every day and Aaron just has a bad attitude. Okay? So is Aaron positive or negative? Okay, so Aaron is negative, okay? I decide I'm sick of Aaron's bad attitude, so I'm going to give her some cash every time she comes in here. Don't get any ideas. I don't really have the cash to fix bad attitudes. But I've decided I'm going to give her cash at the beginning of every class. So I take away, her negativity. What have I just done to Aaron if I've taken away her negativity? I've turned her into a positive. So when you see two negatives back to back, that indicates that you're turning it into a positive. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it as 4x plus 2 equals 14. Okay, then we just isolate the variable. So I'm trying to get my variable all by itself. Technically, I could cancel out the 4 first, but it's much, much easier if I cancel out the plus 2. What is the opposite of a plus 2? What cancels a plus 2? A negative 2, exactly. Now, I've got a problem. My equation's out of balance. I messed up my equation because I took away 2 from one side, but I didn't take it away from the other side. Right. So I got to take it away from the other side of the equation as well. So I've got 4x. That is canceled. 14 minus 2 is 12. Don't you dare tell me I'm getting ready to cancel out that 4 with a negative 4, because how am I going to actually cancel out that 4? I'm giving you important stuff. Division, exactly. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. So my x is equal to 3. So I solved for x. The problem already told us that y is equal to negative 2. So now we have our solution. Remember, you write your x first and you write your y second. Because remember, what we're actually doing is imagining if I were to graph those two lines, where would they intersect? So I need the point on the graph where they would be crossing. Which one goes first, x or y? We know we do the x. So your final solution is 3, 2. It is, oh, shoot. Thanks, Aaron. I was just checking to make sure you were paying attention. Good job, Aaron. You passed. It was a test. All right. Now, again, you're going to get tired of me saying use that. Well, 2 things I have to say. I know this is a lot of work. Okay, that is a whole bunch of steps for one problem. I'm very well aware of that. On Monday, you're really going to hate me because we're going to have to do a version that takes even more steps. I know that you're possibly going to make some mistakes. I am going to be very, very, very forgiving of mistakes. Take your time. Use your tools. Use your calculator. I know this is a lot. Okay, now there's a difference between going slow and doing a good job and playing around. Okay. But please know, I do not expect perfection on this at first. It's not easy, and I know that. All right? The other thing is you can use that Desmos calculator to check your solution. Okay, go ahead and fill in that blank. Remember, the big kid word for the answer is a solution. I didn't write that very clearly. So I can actually use that calculator to check my solution by seeing where the lines intersect. Yep. Look, guys, I typed those 2 equations, the same 2 equations from the problem. I typed them in the Desmos calculator, and look, I got it showed me where they intersected. You still have to know, for a lot of reasons that'll be clear later, you still got to know how to do it without the graphing calculator. But on the tests that really matter, your ACT, your SAT, you get to use this calculator. So on a multiple choice ACT question, if it just asks you to solve this system of equations, y'all type them in there and just get the answer that way. That's what I would do because it's way faster. And on the classwork practice today, I want to encourage you to type them into the calculator and see if you did it right, because you should know if you did it right or not. Okay? Anybody got any questions about number 1? I will, so question 2, we already know that y is equal to what? -6, okay? So I'm going to take that top equation. I'm not going to forget my negative this time. Okay? And I'm going to, so what I like to do, I told you, I like to highlight the variable that I'm getting ready to replace so that I just have a little visual cue that that's what's getting ready to be substituted. And I take the extra step of rewriting everything exactly the same way. -8x, I'm going to write -8x. Then I notice I've got a subtraction symbol. Then and a 7, right? Equals -14. So I rewrite everything exactly the same way that it was. Then I just put in that -6. Okay? What does a number sitting next to a variable mean? Does it mean adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? What am I doing with that 7 and that y? I'm multiplying them. Okay, so that really means 7 times y. So when I substitute that -6 into that equation, I'm getting ready to write it in red because it's wrong. My answer, I'm not going to add those together. Okay? The 7 was sitting next to the y. That means I'm going to multiply them. Okay? Now, I've got my -7. Because remember, in big kid math now, a negative and a subtraction symbol means the same thing. So what I'm really doing is -7 times -6. If you're not good with your facts, put it in that dang calculator. I beg, I plead. Negative times a negative is a positive. Now, because we have this x over here and a 42, remember, variables are racist. As much as I love math, variables are racist. They do not like to mix. This one has an x. This one doesn't have an x. That means we can't put them together. So I need to put, since it's a positive 42, I need to put a plus in between the 8x and the 42 because you can't put them together. Whew, I know this is doing the most, guys. Now I finally have my equation so I can isolate my variable. I could cancel out the -8 first, but instead I'm going to do the positive 42 first because that's easier. What cancels out a positive 42? -42. We know by now that we need to do it on both sides. You're so good. Okay. A lot of people mess that up. Remember, that really means you're just putting two negatives together. And then we're going to divide both sides by -8. So, oops, I didn't leave myself a lot of room there. Sorry, guys. X is equal to a positive 7. Please know that I know how much work that is, and I really do understand it. I'm okay with you going slow if you need time, okay? So my x coordinate is a 7. Which coordinate do we already know? Which one were we given in the problem? The y. We know the y is -6. So our solution is 7, -6. And if you type those two equations into the graphing calculator, you would see that, yes, they do, in fact, intersect at 7, 6. Okay, on the mastery assignment that they're going to require us to give you, I got to get you to show your work